We arrived here to a scene straight out of Hitchock. I don't know if you can see them, but I bet you can hear them. Hundreds of birds have taken over every tree in the parking lot of Walmart here in Amarillo, Texas. Should we be scared? I don't know if we should be, but I'm feeling a little bit intimidated, and I'm pretty sure Captain is too. What's going on here?
Maximalist Minibus with Mary and Captain and you. Get on the bus!
I don't think I have ever seen this many birds in one place before. It's every single tree in the whole parking lot, and they're all full of these birds. And they're not all the same kind of bird. Like, some of them are these black, like, small crow kind of birds, and then there are these brown ones. And the songs, like, it's like all kinds of different sounds all happening. Like, everybody's talking at once. It's absolutely crazy. But the weirdest part is that nobody here in this parking lot is really, like, reacting, you know? There's people collecting the carts, or they're putting their groceries in the car, or they're walking into the store, or they're idling their 18-wheeler. Whatever they're doing, they're just doing it. No one seems to be looking up even at hundreds of birds in these trees. I mean, does this kind of thing just happen all the time? Yes, it does happen all the time. It's morning now, the birds are gone, which is, I think, kind of a good thing, because honestly, I think it would be scarier during the day to have that many birds around. Even scarier than at night. We could probably debate this, but for me, personally, the Hitchcock movie that has always skeeved me out the most is the birds. Because no one actually does anything to these birds to get them upset, and then they just start attacking, you know? I should probably have said spoiler alert there, but, you know, I kind of figure it's 2020. If you haven't seen the birds yet, it's because you don't want to. And you probably already know what happens in it, which is probably why you don't want to. Spoiler alert. Birds attack people, okay? These birds last night, they didn't attack anybody. They just made a lot of noise, but they were still really intimidating, mostly because of the sheer numbers of them, you know? So that intrigued me. So I Googled last night, and I found out some things. The first thing I found out is that these birds are called grackles, okay? And the reason why it looks like there's two different kinds is because the females are smaller and they're brown. They're kind of like plain Jane, you know, because in the bird world, it's the males that have to get dolled up for the mating ritual, not the females, because, yeah, that's how it is there. In our culture, we're always getting made up or having something tucked or lifted so that men will find us attractive enough to date, even if the men are bald and have pot bellies. The other thing I found out is that they're not related to crows, even though they kind of they have that purpley iridescent color and they kind of look like crows. They're not in the corvid family at all. They are closer related to orioles. I found a lot of videos with way worse grackle takeovers than the one I witnessed last night here at Walmart. And I could show you the videos, but I don't really want the copyright strikes. I am going to show you this one, though. It's from a newscast. Fair use for anybody that's listening.
Thousands of grackles are taking over Houston again. Take a look at this video from Wednesday night. You can see thousands of the black birds just, you know, flying and resting in a parking lot, many of them on top of cars. Look at that poor woman trying to make it to safety. The Houston Audubon says they tend to congregate in large flocks and prefer shopping centers and fast food store parking lots where there is trash for food and trees or light posts for perching. They don't even need the light posts. I mean, you see them, it's just a swarm.
They are everywhere there. That's a lot of birds.
I mean, we're focusing on Houston right now, but just give it a few days. I mean, they come to my neighborhood and they just stay. Yes. Gosh, it's annoying. I like it when they set off those cannons, you know, just scare them away.
To try to get them to go elsewhere.
Somebody else's neighborhood.
Yeah.
Okay, did you hear what the news lady said at the end? In her neighborhood, they're using cannons to try to blast the grackles away. But for every person who is, thinking that the grackles are basically rats with wings, there's somebody else who's inspired by them. In fact, I'm going to put a link in the description to a great video. I can't show it to you, it's too long. But it's about artists in Austin, Texas who are inspired by grackles. It's really a good video. Where did they come from and why do they congregate at Walmart? Well, like I said in the news story, they are attracted to places where there's trees to roost and then there's trash to forage and eat. And that makes sense, but it can't be the whole answer because any bird could do that. This behavior seems very specific to grackles. There must be another layer to that. Turns out there is. The relationship between humans and grackles goes back thousands of years. In about 1400, there was an Aztec emperor whose name I can't even begin to pronounce. That's it. He fell in love with the feathers from these birds, which were brought back from some conquest or other, brought back to Mexico City. So he started breeding them, as then he started releasing them in the wild with an order that they were not allowed to be killed. I don't know about you, but if an Aztec emperor tells me not to kill something, I generally don't kill it. So they weren't killed, and they just multiplied. And typically in the center of a town, there would be a plaza with trees in the middle. And the grackles would go to this plaza, which people were also congregating at, and then they would go into the trees to gossip and then roost for the night. And that's how they lived. So then as they started to move north, they did the same thing, except now in modern America, we don't really have town squares like that. So what do we have that's close? We have Walmart parking lots where we have conveniently planted trees right in the middle. So that's where they go. They go there because there's a lot of people, they're comfortable with that, and there's trees. And yeah, I wouldn't discount the food thing because grackles have been known to come down into like outdoor dining areas and just like take fries off somebody's plate, which I can see why people go to like, okay, let's get some cannons and shoo them away. But they can't shoot them because grackles are protected under the Migratory Bird Treaty Act of 1918. You might have heard about that law recently because the current administration is challenging a part of it. That law says that you can pursue, kill, capture, take the feathers or the nests of a very large list of domestic migratory birds, and grackles, yeah, they're on that list. But what's being challenged is that list has traditionally, by every administration, Republican, Democrat, it doesn't matter, it's been interpreted to include what's called incidental take, which is when an action you take results in the death of birds, whether it's by accident or on purpose. It's a criminal act, and there are fines associated with that. That's what happens in things like oil spills, like the Exxon Valdez and the Deepwater Horizon. That's where the charges in those cases come from, is from the Migratory Bird Act. So if the challenge to the incidental take part of this law, I mean, they're already interpreting it that way, but if they get it codified into law, then that will take away any kind of punishment that's related to actions, either accidents like oil spills or like a deliberate action. Like, let's say you spread a banned pesticide knowing that it was going to cause the deaths of birds, but your reason for spreading it was really to kill bugs, not birds. Then you'd be off the hook because that's not deliberately killing birds, okay? Under the current, well, no, under the past interpretation, that would be a criminal act. Under the current, it wouldn't be. Just so you don't think this is a red versus blue thing, 15 former Department of Interior officials, like from both parties, Republicans and Democrats, signed an amicus brief stating that they did not agree with this change to the interpretation and that they believe the law should include incidental take. So, you can do with that what you will, but if you are a supporter of the current administration, you might want to let them know, because I don't know about you, but birds are important to me, not just because they're pretty, but also because we would have a hell of a lot more insects if we didn't have birds. None of this really affects the grackle, though, because the fact is you still are not going to be able to shoot grackles, because that would be deliberately killing birds, and the law still applies to deliberate bird killing. So if you live in Texas or other plain states or thereabouts, you're probably just going to have to get used to the grackles because you're going to have to live with them. They're not going anywhere. And if you like this kind of sort of borderline useless information, you might want to watch this video because there's plenty of it in that one. And I'll meet you over there because there's nothing I like better than irrelevant facts about life. I'll try not to let any grackles follow me. No guarantees on that. They're pretty wily.